Absolutely. Listen, it's no secret. They tried to get Mark Williams until they changed their mind. Luka Doncic needs a lob threat. He needs a pick and roll partner. He needs a rim protector. And if you don't believe me, ask Rudy Gobert, who looked like Wilt Chamberlain while bouncing the Lakers from the playoffs in Game 5 of the first round. So there's a glaring void in the middle of that Lakers starting lineup. They know it, and they absolutely have to address that this summer.
Tim?
I mean, I would certainly agree. They obviously have to get a center. The only other team I would argue needs to make a move is the Denver Nuggets, a team that we saw push the Thunder to 7 games with a very weak bench, with Aaron Gordon hurt by the end of that series. If they can add some depth around Nikola Jokic, the inevitable force that he is, they might be a team that can get back to the finals and win another title. But yeah, look, to go back to the beginning of the show, if the Lakers are going to be the team that Markieff Morris wants them to be, and to be a team that's a championship contending team, they have to make multiple moves. They got to get a center, they got to get shooting, they got to get some perimeter defense. If they can do all that stuff with LeBron James, with Luka Doncic, with Austin Reeves, then yeah, they're a team that could be a force in the West. But they've got a lot of work to do to get to that point. To Shams' point, they've got to go get a big somewhere, whether it's trade or free agency, over the next week or two, and then we can look at what they do after that to see just how high up the West Standings they can go.
Keith, I know you want to get in here.
Lakers does need a center, and to come back on Tim, man, the guy had one good game. He wasn't looking like nothing. He had one good game that entire series. I don't even think he scored more than 10 points any other game in that series. But if you ask me, I would think it's the Golden State Warriors, right? I don't think too many people are talking about that. They were right there. They beat the Rockets, and then Steph Curry got a calf injury in the next round, which kind of set them back. But with them, it's the Kuminga piece. I think once they figure out what they want to do with Jonathan Kuminga, rather you're going to make him one of the guys or you're going to trade him for some assets, because just like the Lakers, they're right there. They were right there winning this year with the injury that happened to Steph, set them back. So I think that's the most talked about thing. What are they going to do with Kuminga? If they move Kuminga, get some pieces that's ready to buy in and win now. If you keep Kuminga, then you just have to let the young guy go.
Shams, I want to know from you, where are the Warriors in all this?
That's the big domino there, Jonathan Kuminga. Either retaining him, and the Warriors are comfortable bringing him back at a particular number potentially, but they are also end up in a sign and trade. And one team to keep an eye on for Jonathan Kuminga is the Miami Heat. I'm told they are expected to be a potential suitor for him. They missed out on Kevin Durant, and so you look out into the wing marketplace. What wing can you go get? And they do look at Jonathan Kuminga potentially there. So is there a deal to be had come July 1 in free agency, and what does that net the Warriors? Because clearly Jonathan Kuminga feels he's ready for an improved role, feels he's ready to go somewhere else and be one of the top 3 options on any given night. And so you think about Miami, Pat Riley.
I want to talk about Miami. I know I'm calling an audible here, but let's lock in on Miami for a second.
Let's talk about it. Let's do it.
Yeah, what is Miami trying to do? What do they need to do? What are you hearing?
They went after Kevin Durant. Mm-hmm. They made multiple offers, but there was a price threshold that they stopped at, right? And
why?
If they had put in,
that seems to be the history.
If they had put in essentially Nikola Jovic, Jaime Jaquez Jr., Haywood Highsmith, a first-round pick, an additional asset, I'm told that deal gets them closer to getting Kevin Durant, but it was always, we'll do a couple of these, and then one guy was just too much potentially. And so, for right or wrong, they had set a price threshold for themselves in those conversations. And so now they lose out on Kevin Durant, and you look into the marketplace with Jonathan Kuminga.
Do you think losing out on Kevin Durant is partly in hopes of getting a guy like Giannis? And then, Keith, I saw you shaking your head. I'll come to you in a bit.
I don't know if they have the pieces for Giannis Antetokounmpo, and that's a whole nother topic. Like, that's a situation where it's not going to be at the draft. It's not going to be during free agency. Giannis Antetokounmpo has played in Milwaukee for 12 years. He's built up a ton of equity there. They have to see what they can do during these periods of the draft and free agency, and he's going to sit back. He's going to observe and see, and eventually later in the summer, I expect there to be some level of a resolution there.
Molly, do you want to know why? Do you want to know why the Heat didn't go all in on Kevin Durant?
Please
because they lost by 1,000,000 points to the Cleveland Cavaliers in the first round of the playoffs as a play-in team, as a 10 seed. Right? To Shams' point, they had to have some level of prudence on looking at their team and saying, what are we as a team? Are we a team that's a real contender in the Eastern Conference, even with these injuries, or are we a team that's a play-in team? I mean, they've been a play-in team the last several years in a row. Yes, they had made some deep runs in the playoffs, but this is not a team where you can look at it and say they're a Kevin Durant away from being a real threat. So while they already are out assets, it didn't make sense to give up everything they could get. So yeah, if they could get Kevin Durant on a discount, sure. But the fact that they couldn't they had to sit and wait and see what else they could do, whether it is Giannis or some other stuff in the future, whether it's Jonathan Kuminga, a young guy to go with Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero. But it didn't make sense for them to push all their chips in to get Kevin Durant to be the 6 or 7 seed.
They do have two players, though, in Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo, that understand they need help and they probably need another piece. So how, in free agency or the trade market, how do they go and address that?
Keith?
Well, they do need other pieces, but Tim, those pieces, and no disrespect to those guys, those pieces they were moving for Kevin Durant, the names that Sham just said, I'm doing that 20 out of 20 times. Like I said, no disrespect, but Jaime Jaquez and Hayward Highsmith in the first-round pick for 2-time MVP, 15-time All-Star, 25,000 points, and still getting better in his career. I'm doing that, and I'm doing that every day of the week. Also, what the East is going to look like next year. You get a Durant, you put yourself in position to be one of the top teams in the East. Now, I don't know if you win a championship with that team, but as far as the East and how it looked with all the injuries, you're putting yourself in the top 3 as a top 3 seed with Bam Adebayo, Kevin Durant, and Tyler Hero as the nucleus of that team.
Certainly a season to capitalize on in the East. Tim McMahon?
Yeah, the Heat were not a piece away, even a massive piece away. They won 37 games last year. As Bontemps said, they got bounced in embarrassing fashion, frankly, in the first round. So to take a big swing at a guy who's still elite, but in the twilight of his career, doesn't make sense. Kuminga, an ascending talent, a guy who can grow with their young core, that does make a lot of sense. To me, Kuminga staying in Golden State doesn't make any sense. Steve Kerr has made it clear he does not think he's a fit with Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler. I mean, you don't have to listen to him. Watch Kuminga sit on the bench, D and PCD in playoff games when their 2 stars are healthy. The fit isn't there with Golden State. They need to turn him into pieces that complement their 2 stars and give Kuminga a chance to spread his wings. He does not want to be a role player. He does not want to fit in. He wants to have a chance to spread his wings. If Miami's willing to give him a chance, to me it makes sense for everybody involved to work out a deal there.
All right, we'll leave it there. Got to get a quick commercial break.
Lakers, new year, new ownership, potentially a new franchise player. What is next for the Lakers?
They have to get this team better to try to compete for a championship. They feel like they owe it to Luka Doncic, owe it to LeBron James. How does that happen? Their biggest level of concern right now is at the center position. Rob Pelinka has been upfront, publicly, privately. He wants to go find a center. Is that via trade? Is that in a free agency with someone like Clint Capella, Brook Lopez, Al Horford? We'll see. But center is the biggest need for this team, a lob threat potentially for Luka Doncic. The other concern there is Dorian Finney-Smith, his free agency. What interest is out there for him? He's got a player option that he's got to decide by the end of the month.
And Keith, you obviously were there. You were actually with Luka the entire year. You were with him in Dallas. You were part of the trade that sent him to L.A. There's been a lot of talk about his workout routines. He's been posting videos and all that kind of stuff throughout this offseason of himself working out and all that. What is